Hey there, this is Mark Gruber along with my girlfriend Derek Cuntley from America's Really Old Stories. You are about to hear the most listened to exclusively JFK assassination podcast, and one of my favorites, the Lone Gunman podcast. Now, here's Rob and Joe.
Oh, you gotta give him that hawk too and spit on that thing.
Section 107 of the Fair Use Act of 1976 provides protection to use copyrighted material for research, analysis, education, and commentary purposes. We here at Loose Moose Productions reserve that right. Now, on with the show. Here's Joe B. and the Triple B. Hey, Aunt Udine, how's things in Texas?
Everything is going to hell down here in Texas.
Hands on Triple B and Joe B. Joe B and the Triple B, baby. Triple B and Joe B. Rock on and Joe Morelli. Triple B and Joe B. Joe B and Triple B, baby. Triple B and Joe B. Rock on and Joe Morelli. We're coming in. Only seeking the truth about JFK. Here's the long going podcast crew. And here we go.
And here we go. Muted again, Rob. 2 weeks in a row.
You know, if that was my only problem, I'd be okay. Do I sound choppy?
You are okay, sir, to me.
Okay, I look choppy. For some reason, my video is choppy as hell. We were trying to fix it before the show. I don't know what is going on. But at least I don't sound that way. Anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. This is episode number 296 of the Lone Gunman podcast. And this one is The Man in the Dark Sportcoat and Other Adventures. Joe, how are you, my friend?
Hey, what's up? What's up? I am good. I had a little bit of a busy week, but a little hectic. But here we are on a Friday night with our homies.
Yes, absolutely. Glad to be here. Let's say hi to everybody in the chat. From the jump, we got to thank Big John and Jack for the super chats. Man, appreciate it, fellas. And we got to say hello to Tiny Dancer, Garden Guns, South to West, Paula Jane, Cat Daddy Steve, Ashley, the Chocolate Thunder from Down Under, Scott, Trey, our favorite guy that's come over from the dark side. We love you, Trey. Bungled is here. Sally is here. Colleen is here. We missed you last week, Colleen. Let's see. Anybody else that we're missing? Yeah, Pork Choppy. I know. Oh, look, now I'm unfrozen. Oh, hallelujah. And now I'm frozen again. Maybe I'm just moving too fast for my camera to pick up. I don't know what in the Sam hell is going on with this thing, Joe.
Very possible.
Fucking piece of shite. Okay. Anyway, if it's not one thing, it's another. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Can't we all just get along? All right, so to set the table a little bit about what we're going to be talking about here this evening. A man in a dark sport coat and light-colored pants allegedly dashed out the back door of the school book depository about 3 minutes after the shots had been fired at the motorcade. He was in his late 20s or early 30s, about 5'8", and had dark brown hair. As he ran south on Houston Street, his coat was flapping backwards in the breeze behind him like Batman. Who was this man, and why was he running away? Was he a conspirator escaping from the scene of the crime, or was he just an excited schoolbook depository employee? Finding an answer to that question is not as easy as it sounds, folks. That's right. There's a lot of conflicting testimony, and we're going to get into it here in a minute. Nevertheless, a proper analysis of these eyewitness accounts will demonstrate that the apparent conflicts are really non-existent ones. We will compare and combine the details of what was seen and heard in order to obtain a unified picture of what's happening behind the schoolbook depository. Let us first examine the matter through the eyes of James Worrell, a young senior in high school living with his mother and sister in Farmers Branch, which was a Dallas suburb. On November 22nd, he decided to skip school, much like Amos Ewins, to see the president, and he hitched a ride to Love Field, arriving at 9 a.m. and then waited for the president's arrival. When the president arrived and disembarked, the large airport crowds prevented Worrell from getting a good view. He considered alternatives for seeing JFK, and he hit upon a bus ride to Dealey Plaza, the final slow point of the motorcade, which would be direct, while the motorcade itself would take an indirect route at reduced speed to enhance the president's visibility. Worrell caught his bus and wound up awaiting the motorcade underneath, of all places, the sniper's window, allegedly, in front of the schoolbook depository. At 12:30, he could see the presidential limousine as it made its successive slow turns onto Houston and Elm Streets. He could not see the president well, however, as the press of the crowd again defeated his purpose. When the limousine had gone 50 to 75 feet past him, he heard a shot that sounded like it came from above. He looked up and saw about 6 inches of a rifle protruding from either the 6th or 5th floor window, 4 inches of barrel extending from 2 inches of stock. The Mannlicher Carcano barrel extends 5 1/2 inches from the stock. Worrell looked down the street to see where the rifle was aiming. A second shot was fired, and the president slumped down in his seat. Worrell again looked up and saw a small discharge of flash and smoke as the rifle fired again. Look, nobody else saw fire and smoke coming from the window, but I'm just going to read what he said. At that instant, he heard people screaming and others were yelling, "Duck!" He sought cover by going around the corner of the schoolbook depository. Just as he was rounding the corner, he heard a fourth shot. Fourth shot, folks. Continuing on towards the rear corner of the building, he turned right and crossed the street, hoping to catch his breath at the corner of Houston and Pacific. He waited there for perhaps 2 or 3 minutes, and then saw the man in the dark sport coat come busting out the back door and run toward Houston and Elm, where he disappeared among other bystanders. Worrell watched him as long as he could, but after losing sight of him, he turned eastward and walked along Pacific Street, reaching his mother's office at Ross and Hervey. He took a bus from there to school and then hitchhiked home. The next morning, as he watched the ongoing television coverage, he saw Jesse Curry make a plea to anyone who had seen the shooting to notify the police. So, being the upstanding citizen that young James was, that's exactly what he did, and his mommy took him down to City Hall to make a statement. 3.5 months later, he testified before the Warren Commission, and his account of the mysterious man running from the back of this TSBD was reported in the local papers. One man who read this story was outraged, for he knew very well that no one had come out that way. But we'll get into him in a second. So, Joe, let us focus on our prime suspect, eyewitness players in the game.
Sure, let's do it. Mr. James Worrell, Richard Worrell. And, of course, Rob, what do we put the most stock in?
First day testimony.
Early statements. Yes, sir. And this is a screenshot of the affidavit that he testified to when his mother brought him down to the station the next day on November 23rd, 1964. And, I'm not going to read all this, but he did get scared and ran from the location and did not look up at the TSBD after to Pacific and Houston. When He was 100 yards from the building. He stopped to catch his breath and looked back at the building. I saw a W/M, white male, 5'8" to 5'10", dark hair, average weight for height, dark shirt or jacket, open down front, no hat, didn't have anything in hands, came out of the building and ran the opposite direction from me. I then caught a bus home. And, first day statements, the DPD, and also an FBI document on the same day. FBI was there as well. And I'm just going to read the description that they give. 5'8" to 5'10", dark hair, dark clothing, wearing some type of jacket, leaving the building where he had seen the gun, the TSBD, and started to run the opposite direction from him from Pacific and Houston. And he stated that last night when he saw the photographs of Lee Harvey Oswald on television, he felt this was the person he had seen running away from the building. He stated this person did not look back, but he was certain that this was a white person since he had a profile view. So those are the early statements from Mr. James Worrell. Pretty consistent with the article.
Yeah, sounds like it. So I mentioned at the end there that there was a guy who heard what Worrell had to say, and he was like, I don't think so. So what does James Romack, or who is James Romack, and what does he say?
Well, James Romack was a gentleman who came forward after seeing the reports from Worrell going to testify to the Warren Commission and what he saw, someone running from the back. And all of a sudden, not only Romack, but his coworker Rackley and someone from K-Box News or Radio, Pate. I forgot his first name, but Sam Pate. Yes, thank you, Rob. So here we go. James Worrell is appearing to testify. Worrell allegedly heard the fourth shot, like you said in the article, Rob, and states he saw a man running from the rear of the TSBD. Based on the publicity, aka the newspaper article, Romack called and stated he, Pate, and Rackley were at the rear of this building during the pertinent period, and they observed no one leaving the building as indicated by Worrell. Rackley of opinion, Worrell's story not true. So, as we'll see, Rob, they put three people here to go against Mr. Worrell's same-day testimony. And
because understand this, folks, because anything other than Lee Harvey Oswald leaving that building is a problem for not only the police, the FBI, and the official version of events. So just keep that in mind. Anything else other than Lee Harvey Oswald leaving that building is a giant problem.
Yes, sir. You are correct.
And they will go to great lengths to protect the original story. So as we'll see.
Yes, exactly. We'll see that a theme in these witnesses, Rob. And this is from one of the earliest FBI documents I could find on James Romack, March 9th, 1964. And this is just a screenshot of some of the pertinent info, to quote him. After hearing the three shots, he walked south. And he was actually a Navy veteran, because I was reading his Warren Commission testimony, Rob, and they were asking him like his opinion on the three shots, and could a sniper make that shot? It was weird. Like, what does this guy, this construction worker, have? Like, is he an expert witness now? And at the same time, the news radio Carr radio station K-Box. I remember that because it's not Xbox, it's K-Box. Might have been the precursor, Rob.
Maybe.
With Sam Pate driving on the scene, Romack removed a barricade from the street so the reporter could get in the area of the TSBD. He stayed in the area for approximately 5 to 8 minutes until the police took over the area. And during his warrant commission, he said that an officer ran to the back of the building and then ran back around. And according to a lot of what we read and we know, there's probably Seymour Weitzman. We don't know, of course. It wasn't identified, but he was a DPD officer alleged to be in the back.
Yeah, something else I forgot about, Joe, that is brought up here. I think Bungle brought it up in the chat here. A woman called into a radio show saying she saw a guy in a sports jacket leaving the back of the TSBD, which I do believe either I or we talked about it at some point. I think it was pre-Joe. I don't know. When we were talking about, or I was talking about, a silver car that was parked back there on Houston. There's some woman that called into some radio show in the 90s or early 2000s. She relayed this story because there was a silver car seen by somebody at the Tippett shooting as well, heading away from it. I don't remember her saying that this guy was wearing a dark sports coat or a dark jacket, but it's quite possible.
No, I actually remember that vaguely. I don't remember if it was BJ or AJ before Joe or after Joe. But it might have been BJ. But that does ring a bell. Yes.
Yes, it's all a giant blur.
Yes. Ain't that the truth? So yeah, James Romack comes out after seeing this newspaper article, completely goes against James Worrell's same day testimony. And granted, this is, over 4 months after the assassination, as he's within a day or two of Worrell testifying to the Warrant Commission. I believe it was the 10th. Don't quote me on it. But so this is a very well-timed disinformation campaign, possibly. I don't know. Allegedly. And one more. But yeah, that's it I have on Romack. And I'm sure there might be one or two things on him later. But these were not the only two people. There were many other people that saw the man in the dark sports coat.
Yes.
And yes. One of these, Rob, is Caroline Walther.
Yes, or Carolyn. Yes.
Carolyn, not Caroline. That's one of our listeners. And this is an HSCA report on the presence of two men in the upper floor windows of the TSBD. And it's kind of like, it kind of gets together all the witnesses that saw two men in the upper floor of the TSBD. And of course, Mr. Carolyn Walther, she was interviewed by the FBI December 4th, 1963, and stated that at the time of the motorcade, she was standing on the east side of Houston Street, 50 or 63 south of the south curve of Elm Street. After the ambulance left with the epileptic, Mrs. Walther looked up at the windows of the TSBD and saw a man in the southwest corner window of the fourth or fifth floor, according to the FBI report. Mrs. Walther was positive the window was not as high as the sixth floor. She described the window as being the most easterly on the south side of the building. Miss Walther said the man was holding a rifle in his hands, and the barrel of the rifle was pointing downward, and the man was looking towards Houston Street. Both his hands were extended towards the window ledge. She described the man as having light brown or blonde hair and wearing a white shirt. She described the rifle as having a short barrel, possibly being a machine gun. She noticed no other features of the rifle. Miss Walther said that she saw at the same time a second man standing in the window to the left of the man with the rifle. This man was wearing a brown suit coat. She could only see his body from the waist to shoulders, and his head was hidden by the window. Miss Walter told the FBI this almost immediately after she saw the second man in the window, um, after the motorcade approached Houston Street. And of course, he was not called to testify before the Warren Commission.
Of course. Why would she be? She's telling a different story than what they want to hear, so they don't want to hear her.
She did not fit the narrative.
Yes, she most certainly did not fit the narrative. And one thing I wanted to throw out there, too, about this James Romack dude is, now, folks, this is where we might need your help. So originally, on the rear of the school book depository, okay, you know those big gates that they walk the tramps by? Well, they open, and that's where they loaded the truck that Billy Lovelady would drive, you know, either moving stuff in between warehouses or making deliveries. Now, on the back side of that dock was the rear loading dock where they would receive shipments, skids of books. Okay, so also on that side where the dock is, there is a door. And this is where, so if I'm looking out the back of the depository, to my left from the corner, this guy was 110 feet away to the west of the backside, like 11 o'clock on the clock face away. Was there another door over on the right side of the rear of the like the Houston Street side? I don't know. But if there was, this could explain Romack not seeing anybody coming out of the one back door, but Worrell could be talking about the other door. I kind of think that there had to be another door back there for them to come in, because that's where everybody was parking from over there, and they would park, you know, at the end of Houston Street and then come in the back door. I don't think they walked all the way to the other side of the building where the loading dock was and came in. But I could be wrong. See, Bungled is saying 3 doors, he thinks. So it's quite possible that this Romack guy just was watching the wrong door and didn't see, because in Worrell's own testimony, he stated that he was standing on the sidewalk in front of the depository, like under the alleged sniper's window, and that after the shots, he went around the corner. So he would have went around the corner and then to the back of the depository, which is where he would have seen this guy. So It definitely would have been out of sight of Romack if he's watching a different door.
Yep. And Bungle just said 2 doors and the bay.
Right. That's what I was thinking. 2 doors and a bay.
So yeah, you're right. I mean, he wouldn't have been able to see all 3, have a vantage point to all 3 of those, like maybe some of the other, like Worrell did, or Walter did, or some of the other people we'll get to, Arnold Roland, I'm sorry, excuse me, that saw other people leave the TSBD.
Yes.
All right, we'll go back here. So we just talked about Carolyn Arnold and Ruby Henderson, who I didn't know about either until I was, looking into this week. And this isn't the same HSCA report. In an FBI interview on December 5th, 1963, Miss Ruby Henderson related that at the time of the motorcade, she was standing on the east side of Elm Street, just north of Houston Street. She said that right after the ambulance left the area with a man who had suffered an epileptic seizure, she looked up at the TSBD. She saw 2 men in the window on one of the upper floors. So she's not specifying a floor. She could not recall exactly which floor they were on, but stated that she did not recall seeing any other persons on any other floors. above the two men. So we know, Rob, that there was a few people hanging out the windows, right?
Well, we know that there was the three black guys that were on the fifth floor, right?
Right.
So is this who she's describing? Seeing two of them,
It's possible.
but she also states that one of the men was not a Negro, or she could not definitely state that one of them men was not a Negro. That's
Right.
some weird wording, but
Yeah, might be by design. And yeah, she described one as being possibly Mexican or Negro, and the other was not. She could not further describe their attire. They were standing back from the window, which I think Roland said that, right? We'll get it there. But
Yeah.
looking out towards the motorcade, Miss Henderson says she saw the two men in the window before the motorcade, but did not know much. I thought. Okay, I thought. Okay, there we go. So here, the other man was. So one of the men she was describing was wearing a dark shirt, which is kind of consistent. Sorry, I read over that part. So this is a witness I never really knew about, but she's giving an FBI interview on December 5th, 63, and it's corroborated by other people that we've talked about and that we will talk about probably.
yes, sir.
All right. Check next. Richard Randolph Carr.
Yes.
We've talked about him in another episode, but don't ask me which one.
It was probably the same one.
It's all blurry.
I know I talked about these guys. You saw somebody leave in the back of the school book depository, but we didn't really get into depth about the people seen on the floors before the shooting and the dark sport coat and all that jazz, which just kind of overlaps a little bit with what we talked about before.
Yeah, maybe it was the girl on the stairs episode. That's my guess, but yours is as good as mine, guys. So Richard Randolph Carr stated to the FBI on January 4th, 64, that he saw a man looking out of a window on the top floor of the depository a few minutes before Carr heard shots. He described the man as white, wearing a hat, tan sport coat, ding ding, and glasses. He said that at the time of the motorcade, he was standing on about this the sixth floor of the new courthouse, which was under construction at Houston and Commerce. Carr said that from that spot, he could only see the top floor and roof of the depository. It was from that location that he observed the man in the depository window. Carr said that after the shots, he was going towards the direction of the triple underpass. So if you were, say, on the where they said Oswald was shooting at, and he shot, he would be running towards in a diagonal direction, right? Towards the grassy knoll to that back staircase, right, Rob? I think.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the staircase wasn't on that side, so he would have to go across. But then when he got to the intersection of Houston and Commerce Streets, he saw a man whom he believed to be the same individual he had seen in the window of the depository. Carr was not called to testify before the Warren Commission. Another little pattern we're seeing here with these witnesses. He did testify on February 1969 in the Parrish County Criminal District Court in New Orleans, state of Louisiana. Clay Shaw versus state of Louisiana. Carr stated that he saw the man on the fifth floor window of the TSBD. He said he later saw the man going down Houston Street, turning at Commerce Street. Carr also described the hat worn by the man as felt, said his glasses were heavy rimmed with heavy earpieces. He had on a tie and a tan sport coat. Another tan sport coat reference. So I don't know if you want me to go on to the next one. Or...
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to fix this damn
Okay.
webcam or camera issue, and something is definitely wonky because the other one, as you can see, this quality sucks. This is straight from the computer. So yeah, we're not going to do this one. It's choppy too.
Well, you were
Sorry.
good to me, sir. All right. Well, let's look at some comments while the Triple B gets that going. Um, Hi, Moose. They needed Lee Harvey Oswald so they could clear that car park, I think. Possibly. Hi, Sean. How are you? Some of the highest caliber guns, I know Garden and Guns is an expert on guns, are bolt action. She didn't know the gun she meant automatic. Yeah, I didn't think it was a machine gun either. I kind of took that as like a witness's error type of thing. Maybe just bolt action or having shots semi frequently could be considered a machine gun to someone who is not familiar with guns, right? Let's see, Timothy Ryan, the black guys on the fifth floor would have heard the shots and commotion above them big time. No, yes, I believe. Which one was it? Was it Junior Jarman? Was that said that he heard or he felt some of the pebbles from the scope on the sixth floor fall on him when he was hanging out the fifth floor? The chat can remind me which one that was. So there, people did see that, but you do have to wonder how many of these witnesses that we're talking about did see those black eyes on the fifth floor and thought they were on a different floor after the fact, right? I mean, it's with witness testimony, you could have 10 witnesses and 10 different areas. Carmine did a great breakdown way back when on TSBD Variations and Testimony, Lone Gunman podcast, like 4 years ago. You know what? I remember that episode. That's a really good one. I love all of Carmine's episodes, even going back to them years after the fact. It's just as relevant today. And spoiler, we hope to have him on hopefully the week after 4th of July. Bart Camp interrogations. Yes, he's obviously done a lot of great work on that. Hi, Sally. How are you? Yes, Paul. They heard shells hit the floor, but amazingly, they heard the shots just fine afterwards. Yeah, there's so many people that were near the TSBD that didn't hear anything, or some heard 3. Worrell heard 4. And we're going to get to Arnold Roland in a second here once we give Rob a second to get back. They said the building shook. I will never believe that. Neither did I. Yeah, that's a little much. Off topic. It's okay. Oh, True Detective. I watched season 1 of True Detective this week. Very good. Thanks, JOEB. Yeah, you know what? I watched it like years ago, and I like had heard on like seen some Twitter posts, X posts that like it was like one of the best seasons in television history, like for a limited series. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go back and rewatch it, and it's really good. I mean, Matthew McConaughey is amazing, and yeah, I recommend it to anyone. It's not like the most uppity show, though. If you want to, it's not all roses. Yes, it was the plaster. Thank you, Colleen. Falling on them a floor below seems really strange. Yeah, I think they were compromised, to be honest. And we're just strong armed into kind of saying what, I don't know if it was Ball or Beelan, whatever they wanted to. I mean, if you're an African American in 1963 and you don't want to be attached with Oswald, you'll kind of say whatever you want, right? Let's see. Carmine was of the opinion that whoever was in the TSBD wanted to be seen sticking heads out windows. I mean, that's what it seems like, right? I mean, multiple witnesses say people are making overt, parade rest and other type of positions with the rifle, putting the rifle out the window. It's extremely sketch because no assassin would want to do that. I think we all know that. And why would you want to draw attention there unless that was kind of the diversion? And I do think it's very possible that a shot or more was fired from the TSBD. I just don't think it was Oswald. But season 3 is good, Trey. You know what? I saw season 3 after we watched that. Why? All right, so let's do this. I'll continue with my little PowerPoint as we get ready for the Triple B to triumphantly return to us here. And we're going to go to Mr. Arnold Roland, who made a statement to the DPD on November 22nd, 1963, obviously the day of the assassination, and testified to the Warren Commission on March 10th, 1964. And this was also a student at a high school in Dallas, Texas. He was employed at the Pizza Inn on the weekends. At approximately 12:10, his wife, Barbara, and him arrived in downtown Dallas and took position to see the presidential motorcade. We took position at the west entrance of the sheriff's office on Houston Street. We stood there for a time talking about various things, and we're talking about the security measures that were being made for the president's visit in view of the recent trouble when Mr. Adlai Stevenson had been a recent visitor to Dallas. It must have been 5 or 10 minutes later when we were just looking at the surrounding buildings when I looked up at the TSBD building and noticed that the second floor from the top had 2 adjoining windows which were wide open. And upon looking, I saw what I thought was a man standing back about 15 feet from the windows and holding his arms what appeared to be a high-powered rifle and looked as though it had a scope on it. And he appeared to be holding this at parade rest sort of position. I mentioned this to my wife and merely made the remark that it must have been the Secret Service men. This man appeared to be a white man and appeared to have, sorry, this is hard to read, a light-colored shirt on, open at the neck. He appeared to be of slender build, appeared to have dark hair. In about 15 minutes, Kennedy passed the spot where we were standing, and his motorcade had just turned west on Elm, heading down the hill, when I heard a noise which I thought to be a backfire. In fact, some of the people around laughed, and then in about 3 seconds, I heard another shot, and in 3 seconds, I heard a third shot. My wife, who had a hold of my hand, started running and dragging me across the street, and I never looked up again at the window. And, this is a statement on the 22nd of 1963. So you guys are going to be, oh, there he is.
Hey, look who's back and not frozen anymore. Hallelujah.
And you're on the other side of me.
Yeah, we can't have that. Hold on a second, Joe. Let me switch it back. Okay, that's better.
Okay. Well,
hey, I'm back.
Thank you. They were getting tired of me.
No.
I just read some comments and then read the first day statement of Mr. Arnold Roland.
Yes.
So, which and if you want, I will continue.
Pray do. Pray do continue.
So this guy, for whatever reason, caused a big issue. And I found this letter. Yeah. This letter from J. Lee Rankin, and this is very hard to read, to J. Edgar Hoover about Arnold Roland on March 16th, 1964. And essentially it says, during the course of his testimony, Mr. Roland provided the commission with certain information about himself. And he says the same thing. Hold on. He says, he says that the person he saw had a plaid shirt on, and he thought it was red and green, very bright color. So that's kind of not lining up with the other people who saw whoever else in the
well, red and green can both be a dark color if you're looking at it from far away.
Yeah, it depends the color red and green, right? Yeah,
true.
But he was pretty consistent on the plaid, so during the testimony,
a dark plaid could still be a dark colored sport coat.
Yeah, like a flannel. Yeah, for sure. So I guess Mr. Rankin got really upset at his testimony, or really suspicious about it, because he wrote to Hoover and said that Roland told me that he has an IQ of 147, Rob. 147.
That's pretty smart.
I know. And it's a 47. That makes him double smart. And that through his junior year in high school, he got straight A's, but received a couple of B's in his senior year, and claims he received his IQ test in May of 63. So essentially, the commission, aka Rankin, requests that your bureau, aka Hoover, investigate all aspects of Mr. Roland's testimony concerning the person alleged to have been in the southwest corner window. So I think Arnold Roland, Rob, was the only person to say he saw someone on the southwest side, which is, if you're standing outside the depository, like looking at the entrance, it would be on your left, right? Closer to the...
Correct. Closer to the knoll.
The grassy knoll, or the picket fence, right? Both. And so I don't know why, because he was like one of the few people that to say that they would do what we're going to get into. And he says the commission requests that your bureau investigate everything according to him. So what do you think Hoover does? J. Hoover does, Rob?
What does he do, Joe?
Well, how about pull all his report cards back to 1960 and kind of refute this. I had straight A's for a couple of years,
Remind
right?
me never to piss off the FBI.
Yeah, I think we might have already
They
be
might
there.
find out that I flunked out of college. And I tell people I graduated. Yes.
Yeah. So they go back to 1960. I actually no 1959 here, fall of 1959, and these is Commission Exhibit 2644.
When he was in middle school.
Yeah, they're going deep on this guy. What the hell? I don't get it.
They can't have this. They can't have anything other than Oswald, bro. I'm telling you. They look for a way to discredit anybody that saw anything remotely, not just Oswald.
It's wild. And, I didn't know this, James had a good comment either. He's like, I didn't realize these couple of witnesses. And I learned something every time you give a topic and I look into it. That's what we're about, learning things, looking through the documents. And this is great, Rob. On April 11th, 1964, the FBI is continuing after the report card and interviewing every teacher he had for years, right? Which is all in commission exhibits. They go deeper, all right? They're not done. Then the Dallas County office had a warning notice of Arnold Patrick Roland, 5'9", dark blonde hair, blue eyes. This warning notice stated that he passed 11 bad checks, essentially, in Topeka, Kansas during October 62. Was he in middle school? And stated the subject was from Dallas. This description fits Arnold Lewis Roland, and I identified the picture on the warning notice as being Arnold Lewis Roland. This warning notice, this is great, Rob. This warning notice states that Roland used the aliases of Jack Nicholson,
Yes.
a man ahead of his time,
Yeah.
Jack Nichols, and Alex Johnston. I interviewed Miss Annie Turner, counselor, Grossier Tech High School,
Grozier.
Dallas. Grossier.
Yes.
Yeah. Mike will get mad
Alpha
at me.
66 knows exactly where that
You know,
is.
he came in late. I forgot to say hi to him. Hello, Mike. She stated that
Mike is low. Shit. Hold on. Go ahead. Continue, Joe.
That's okay.
I'm going to make some adjustments.
I'm leaning forward a little bit. She stated that she could not believe what Roland said. She gave as an example that he lied to her about credits he had received while attending high school in Kansas City. She said she attempted to confirm the credits he said he obtained and did not receive any replies to her letters. She said that she also figured the time that Roland was in Kansas City, and she determined she did not think it was possible for him to obtain the credits at the time. Ms. Turner stated that she read in the Dallas paper that Arnold Roland said that he had observed certain events at Main and Houston Streets on November 22nd, 63. She said, judging from his past history, she and other members of the Grossier Tech faculty considered his observations to be untrue or fabricated, and that she would not believe them. And Rob, this and there's like 6 or 7 teachers that say similar things. They say that he stole books from the library and they got him from his locker, and there was a book on communism. I mean, we've seen this playbook before, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's anything they can find to discredit this dude, they are going to find it. And if they can't find it, they're going to make some stuff up. So,
or have 3 witnesses counter you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in Worrell's case.
Right. Unbelievable.
It's really crazy, actually. And most of the people that could corroborate that were obviously not called. Richard Randolph Carr, Carolyn Walther, obviously Miss Henderson was not called either. And that was it I had on the document side of these characters we are talking about this episode, Rob.
Yes. And I have here a slight, small chronology, if you will. So at 12:28, a man in a tan sport coat is seen by Richard Randolph Carr on the 7th floor of the school book depository. Okay. 12:29, a man in a brown suit coat is seen by Carolyn Walther on the 5th floor of the school book depository, standing next to a gunman. 12:30, James Worrell sees a gun firing at the president from a window on the 5th or 6th floor. Possibly a gun. He only saw 6 inches of it. So it could have been anything hanging out that window above him.
Sure. I'm going to put up something, that my little summary slide as you read.
Yeah. Romack starts walking toward the school book depository, keeping the back door within his view, or a back door within his view. 12:31, Barnett runs to the back area of the school book depository. This would be a Dallas police officer. He encounters Adams and Stiles as Victoria Adams and Sandra Stiles coming out the back door. Did Romack mention them coming out the back door? He said nobody came out the back door, right? Whoa. Trey? Goodness gracious.
Yes.
Dollars from the dark side. Thank you, Trey. Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you so much. For the best.
Day. At 12:32, Barnett returns to the front of the schoolbook depository. The K-Box, Joe, news car arrives on scene at 12:33. Romack removes a portion of a barrier, allowing the vehicle to pass. Meanwhile, the man in the dark sport coat dashes out the back door. 12:34, the K-Box car is parked near the schoolbook depository, and the man in the tan sport coat is seen by Richard Randolph Carr walking south on Houston. He gets into a Nash Rambler driven by a black man. At 12:45, Deputy Roger Craig sees, quote, Oswald escaping in a Nash Rambler driven by a dark-complected man. Whoa. Mind blown, right? So there's your little chronology. Maybe there was somebody else in the Rambler and not just the dark-complected man. You know what I mean? Quite possible. So, Joe, there were some other mentions and some other people that saw some things that day. And one of them was Marion Baker, you know, the first cop to go heroically rushing into the schoolbook depository and allegedly being assisted by Roy Truly as they made their way up the stairs and supposedly encountered Oswald on the second floor before making their way all the way up to the roof. So,
Of course.
this is Marion Baker, and it's tiny, so pardon me. His affidavit from November 22nd, 1963. He said, as I entered the door, I saw several people standing around. I asked these people where the stairs were. A man stepped forward and said he was the building manager and that he would show me where the stairs were. I followed the man to the rear of the building, and he said, let's take the elevator. The elevator was hung several floors up, so we used the stairs instead. As we reached the third or fourth floor, I saw a man walking away from the stairway. There's a lot of problems here, and we'll get to them. I called to the man, and he turned around and came back towards me. The manager said, oh, I know that guy. He works here. I then turned the man loose and went up to the top floor. The man I saw was a white man, about 30 years old, 5'9", 165, dark hair, and wearing a light brown jacket. So who the hell was this guy that he saw on the third or fourth floor?
I don't know. Oswald didn't have his jacket on, right? Was it in the Dahmer room, or did he leave it there?
Yeah, but it was like a dark blue, like
Right.
puffer jacket. I mean, he did have his rusty, browny, orangey looking shirt on, allegedly, but that was not a jacket.
Or
And
the white?
look, I know Marion Baker was probably a couple beers short of a six-pack, you know, country bumpkin style. You know what I'm saying? But as you're running upstairs, I would hope that you know the difference between the second floor, which is one flight up, and the third or fourth floor, which is much further up the stairs. Okay? And this was his first day testimony, Joe. That, of course, changed over time, much like a lot of other people's.
Of course.
Imagine that.
Yeah. And even if you counted like going up the vestibule steps as a floor, you're still a floor or two away from that encounter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's no... Like I said, unless you were just dumb and you can't count. I mean, seriously, you should know the second floor from the third or fourth floor and a shirt from a jacket. Be my guess, you know.
Hi, kitty.
Yes, my cat desperately wants on my lap. Nene Kite. Next up, Amos Ewins. He saw some people. as well. And this is from his November 22nd Sheriff's Department affidavit. You know, he said he was skipping school and stuff, and he saw the president turn the corner in front of him, and I waved at him, and he waved back. I watched the car go down the street, and about that time the car got near the black and white sign. I heard a shot. I started looking around, and then I looked up in the red brick building. I saw a man in a window with a gun, and I saw him shoot twice. He then stepped back behind some boxes. I could tell the gun was a rifle, and it sounded like an automatic rifle by the way he was shooting. I just saw a little bit of the barrel and some of the trigger housing. This was a white man. He did not have on a hat, and he had a bald spot. I just saw this man for a few seconds. As far as I know, I had never seen this man before. Is he describing Oswald? Doesn't sound like it.
No.
I mean, Oswald didn't have a bald spot.
And you know what? Something just came to me, Rob. So say, so just assume Oswald is not on the 6th floor, right? He's not shooting, but someone else is up there, right?
Yeah.
And they're standing back like a couple of the witnesses we've talked about, right? 10, 15 feet back from the windows. Some people, at some point they're drawing attention.
Well, even if you're 3 feet back from a 6th floor window, you're going to be hard to see, bro, from people on the street.
But I'm saying that angle, right? Down, say back so far, that's the kind of shot that would ricochet and hit James Tague. Just if you were to just make sure that there's some type of shot coming from the TSBD, that's the type of shot that I feel would, jump up and hit him. I don't know. That's a random thought I had.
But see, what a lot of people don't realize is the windows on these floors literally start at your shins, or just like a foot off the floor.
Yeah.
So nobody's standing up on any of these floors and shooting out the window, because only the bottom part of the window gets raised up.
Yeah.
So in order to shoot out the window, you have to either be crouching or kneeling. And if you're standing, that's a big visual difference. Or else you look like a little person, walking around up there on your knees.
Yeah. And I think it was Carolyn Walther that said that she couldn't see the face of the guy because the window was blocking him. I believe it was her. I showed the document. I could be wrong, but
it's probably glare or something. But like I said, if you're 2 or 3 feet back from the window, people are not going to be able to see you or get a good description. They just might know that it looks like there is a person there.
Right.
Vaguely.
So when they're estimating how many feet back the people that they saw, it's not like really an accurate measurement of some of the witnesses we're talking about. Like they can't be 15 feet back, like you said, and be seen by someone else.
No, they'd be in the middle of the floor. Nobody could see them.
Right.
Unless they were level with them.
Right. Unless they wanted to be seen.
Well, I think you could do jumping jacks naked in the middle of the 6th floor and nobody can see you, and you might really want to be seen doing it.
Judith, where are you?
Jumping jack flash. All right. Next up, we got some talk from a fellow by the name of Robert Edwards and Ronald Fisher. Robert Edwards, in an affidavit, said the man he saw in the window had on a light-colored sports shirt, rather short hair, was around 26 years old. Ronald Fisher stated that the man was lightheaded and had on an open-neck shirt and was in his 20s with a clear complexion. When interviewed by officers of the Dallas Police Department, Fisher said pictures of Oswald looked like the man he saw, but he declined a definite identification. When later interviewed by the FBI, neither Fisher nor Edwards could identify the man from the pictures. Edwards identified the person as having sandy hair, and Fisher said the man had light hair. Oswald does not have either. So who did they see? It's all over the place.
Yeah, you had a lot of light hair descriptions in some of the witnesses we just talked about. At least
And a lot of different clothing descriptions.
glasses, not glasses,
Dark sport coat, white t-shirt, open neck shirt,
tan sports coat,
tan sport. Yeah.
dark
You know,
clothing.
bald spot. I mean,
Tall and thin is another one I had.
yeah. So they're all over the place with this stuff. Now, I did want to bring up a little something here on the visuals of something that I noticed. Okay. And I believe, Joe, we talked about this before, and I didn't have the picture handy.
Mm-hmm.
There's Jack Ruby in front of the school book depository. Not really, but allegedly. Right there, smack dab in the middle.
Yeah.
I think that guy looks a little too young to be Jack Ruby, but it's,
Mm-hmm.
it's a good shot.
Yeah, it's not out of this world, but I think it was a couple episodes ago, talked about all the Dallas Morning News people. I think it was the Pool of Blood episode of all the Dallas Morning News, either reporters or photographers that said they saw him in past 12:30, maybe closer to 1. Some said they lost sight of him. It kind of reminds me of this.
All right, here's another one that I wanted to talk about. This photo right here, Joe. As you can see, this is right after the shooting. The Newmans are still on the ground. Dark-complected man and umbrella man are still on the curb, right?
Yep.
You got photographers running all over the damn place like crazy. And if you look in the background, over to your right, kind of above the umbrella man's head, a little to the right,
Mm-hmm.
at the retaining wall there, at the end of the sculpture
The black
garden.
spot.
Yeah. That's a figure kind of stealthily making his way out of there. Now, let me show you a blown up picture of this figure, Joe. Right there. That's what we call a suspicious man.
Sus man.
Sus man. Who, I don't know. It appears like he has a hand in one pocket
Yeah.
and maybe carrying something in his right hand, maybe below the retaining wall. Maybe not. I don't know. It just appears that way, the way he's stooped and walking. It's just, he's definitely in the shadow. He's all in black.
Yeah, I've seen this picture before, and it's crazy. I've never really known what to think of it. So how long do you think after the shots was that picture taken? If you have dark complected, an umbrella man kind of sitting on the curb, the reporters running up.
Not long, because
less than a minute. Yeah,
probably. You still have the motorcade motorcycles.
yeah.
You see them right
the
here.
press bus. Yeah.
No, right here in this one.
Yeah. Okay.
You can still see the motorcade motorcycles. And then
Yeah,
moving on to this Skaggs photo. All right, the fellow on the other side of the street, that's dark complected man making his way out of Dealey Plaza.
Oh, wow.
Okay, as the White House press bus comes forward.
That's a great picture, Rob.
Now notice in the bottom left-hand corner of this photo, but the babushka lady is still on this side of the street. Okay?
Wow.
And then we move to this photo, which has everybody rushing towards the grassy knoll, right?
Right. The lake crowd.
Yeah. Well, right dead center of this photo is the babushka lady making her way across the street, whoever she is. You can see a lot of things in this photo. I can see Charles Brim on the backside of the street with his son talking to another guy. I can see what looks to be somebody grabbing Mary Mormon's Polaroid, maybe, possibly. And then right in front of her, you can see the E. Howard Hunt figure, the guy with the trench coat, sunglasses, and hat, in the essential spy disguise from the 60s, making his way across the street as well. There's just a lot going on here, you know?
There is.
So by this time, dark-complected man is gone.
He's out.
He's gone. Because in this photo, you can clearly see Babushka Lady still on this side of the street. And what he does is he makes his way down, probably to the steps or so, and then crosses the street, cuts over the other grassy area in between Elm and Commerce, and never seen or heard from again. I just thought that was interesting.
No, that's very interesting. And I've seen this picture, but I haven't seen it in a long time. I will admit it. And Rob, this is probably, so he walks to the steps right to his right there, and then he crosses, that field, right? And that's where that new video came up on the Ed Forum and other places around the JFK recently, where he was kind of like wobbling or no, walking with a limp. That was it.
Well, I think that's a stretch. I mean, you're talking about you're talking about some old grainy, bumpy footage anyway. You know what I mean? So who really knows? And it was like what, three seconds long. I mean,
right. But I'm saying that would have been after he crossed the street, right?
Yes, you're correct.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactamundo, Joe. So now, in the course of doing a little research for this show, and by the way, thank you to researcher William Weston, whose work on the Man in the Dark Sport Coat was immensely helpful to our research. I came across something else, and it has to do with well, I'll just read it to you because it's interesting. Very interesting. There may have been some shady stuff going on in the school book depository, folks.
Shocker.
I know, right?
It's like in Casablanca. I'm shocked gambling is going on in this establishment. You're winning, sir.
So a couple things stood out to me in this article. The first one says Mr. Roy S. Truly, the warehouse superintendent, who has been very cooperative. Now, this is in a letter to the Warren Commission from Hoover. So he's saying, Mr. Roy Truly, warehouse superintendent, has been very cooperative with this bureau in the past, strongly objected to the printing of all employees, as he felt it would seriously handicap the work of his firm. Mr. Truly stated that there were only about 20 employees who would have had the occasion to actually handle the cartons in question, and he desired the fingerprinting to be limited to this group specifically of people. As a result of these objections, the FBI modified its demand according to the limitation imposed. How can a mere warehouse manager dictate to the FBI what it could and could not do in the investigation of a crime of the assassination of the president? That's a good point.
That's a very good point.
Who the hell is Roy Truly? If you're Hoover and the FBI, you're fingerprinting everybody.
Yeah. But Hoover's kind of writing like I don't want to say letter of recommendation, but kind of backing up his, how would you describe it?
There's shortcomings.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, fingerprinting the boxes didn't really do a whole lot for the FBI.
Well, in the sniper's nest, there were 4 boxes that had 28 identifiable prints. Oswald were 2 palm prints and 1 fingerprint. 24 prints were made by 2 law enforcement officials, but 1 palm print could not be identified. The unmatched print might mean an accomplice. To settle the matter, the FBI needed a set of prints from everybody, employed a total of 69 people. Very simple procedure, and that's when they ran into an unexpected wall of resistance from Roy Truly. Now, if you figure of all the people that we know that were working in the school book depository, picking orders, working on all these floors, that they would have found a lot more fingerprints than just Oswald and law enforcement. I mean, come on.
Yeah. You would have had everyone on that floor crew pretty much moving boxes, I would think. If you
You would have had Frazier's prints. You would have had, and I'm sure they only were allowed to print those 20 guys who checked orders, picked orders, put stuff away, and that they knew were working on the floor that day. You know, so for them not to find anybody else's except Oswald and cops is a little sus.
Yeah.
It's a lot of sus.
I think so.
Let's see, what else? Okay, so in late 1974, while working as a journalist in Dallas, a man by the name of Elsie Glaze met a woman who began working for the book depository in 1969, Joe.
69?
69.
Okay.
6 years after the assassination. She was no longer working there in 1974 when she spoke to Glaze. Her supervisor was William Shelley when she did work there. The company, she said, had a strange way of introducing new employees to their duties. She and another new employee were approached by 2 men who produced ID wallets and identified themselves as, quote, government agents. They were taken to an empty room and given questionnaires to fill out. These exams were full of oddly irrelevant questions, calling for opinions on various topics of the day, especially social issues, like, do you think hippies are dirty? Would you do acid? You know, is Nixon a crook? You know, obediently, these 2 employees wrote out their answers, and when they were done, they gave the sheets back, and in the short pause that followed, one of the examiners bluntly asked, have you ever been recruited by the FBI or the CIA? The 2 employees were stunned. As ordinary office workers, they were only doing minor clerical tasks at low wages. Why would anyone think they came from the FBI or the CIA? While it was true the book depository had acquired the notoriety of being the place where Oswald shot the president, by 1969, you know, that should have been a pretty distant history. You know what I mean?
You think, yeah.
Yet even more disturbing were the next questions that came to mind. If the book depository was just an insignificant little company, why would it be attracting the attention of the 2 biggest intelligence establishments in the country? So, Glaze asked the woman if she and her co-worker were the only ones subjected to this kind of treatment. No, they were not the only ones. Background checks on new employees were done as a routine procedure at the book depository. And after listening to the woman's account, Glaze decided to check it out. He contacted her former supervisor, William Shelley, Bill Shelley, and asked to meet with him. Shelley agreed to this request and even allowed the reporter to take notes and use a tape recorder. The meeting took place at the book depository warehouse near the intersection of Royal Lane, Big Mike, we need to figure out where this is, Royal Lane and Interstate 35 on the far northwest side of Dallas. The company had moved from the Elm Street location in 1970.
The information that Glaze was gathering must have been extensive, for the two men had numerous meetings together. Yet only a few disclosures are provided in the letters. The most significant one appears in the 1989 letter. Mr. Shelley claims to have been an intelligence officer during World War II and thereafter joined the CIA. This extraordinary revelation goes far in explaining the mysteries of the book depository, and a discussion of its implications will be given later. So Shelley told Glaze that he had been the supervisor of Lee Harvey Oswald, and that after the assassination, the Dallas police placed Shelley under arrest and formally charged him with the murder of the president. Say what? Do what? Now, a lot of people think that Shelley might be, exaggerating things here a little bit. But we actually have a picture of Bill Shelley, allegedly, right there with a shotgun in his face. And behind him is Bonnie Ray Williams. And behind him is Danny Arce.
Yeah.
Behind him looks to be another cop in plain clothes, right?
Yeah.
And they shoved all these guys into the squad car and took them down to the station. Now, what did all these guys have in common? Because these weren't the only guys. Remember, they took they took Lovelady down.
Mm-hmm.
They took, what was his name?
Doherty? No.
Doherty. What was his first name?
Jack Doherty?
Jack Doherty, yes. The elusive Jack Doherty.
The only one unaccounted for in the TSBD. And that's coming from Bart, not me.
Yeah. Well, I think I stumbled upon a picture of Jack Doherty. Believe it or not.
Rob, before you go to the next picture.
Yes.
Do you know, if you're looking at Shelley and you go to the right.
Sorry.
There's this guy that people have talked about, and he might have a tan sport coat.
Oh, yeah. The fat guy under the tree?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of threads on that, and it's funny. I have no idea, but
he's just watching. He likes to watch.
It's kind of shady that he's like blends in with the tree.
Just have my hands in my pockets playing pocket pool, watching people get arrested around here.
He's a big boy.
It's Dean Andrews. No. Okay, so here's the picture I think I found of Jack Doherty.
Okay.
I believe somebody found a picture of Jack Doherty there on the left when he was in the Air Force or whatever he was in. He was in the military, right?
Yeah. And that's why he had some type of PTSD, which is why Truly said in his working testimony he was kind of slow, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Allegedly, yes.
Right. Well, right.
Yeah. So now, if you look on the right-hand side there, under the red arrow, behind Danny Arce, there's a guy who looks a lot like this squinty-eyed guy on the left, who people say is Jack Doherty. With his ear. I mean, the ears are a dead giveaway.
Wow. And
right?
I haven't seen this before, guys. Rob likes to surprise me. So the ears, I mean, that they stand out. I mean, you can't.
It's dead giveaway. So there's Jack Doherty. He was obviously in this group of people with Bill Shelley, with Bonnie Ray Williams, with Danny Arce, and we can't see him in this picture. Okay, because he's probably behind him somewhere.
Yeah.
And these people were arrested that day and taken down to the station. And if we believe Buell Frazier, who had an affidavit pushed in front of him, they wanted him to sign as being an accomplice to the murder of the president, then it's not out of the realm of possibility that what Bill Shelley is telling this LZ Glaze reporter dude is out of the realm of possibility. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, Oswald wasn't obtained yet, right? He wasn't in custody. So there are going to be numerous backup plans going on just in case. I mean, If you think this thing goes down without a backup plan, I have some news for you about tradecraft.
So the charges against Shelley were soon dropped and he was released. Since that day, at various times, journalists representing several newspapers and magazines approached him with offers of huge money for his personal account, and the offers were all turned down until he decided to finally meet with Glaze in 1974. So when Glaze tried to get permission to quote him in his article, Shelley refused and insisted that even his name was not to be printed. In spite of this setback, Glaze was not discouraged. He went back to the woman and told her that he was going to do a story on the book depository, and then he was going to talk to the FBI and possibly get some more information. And when the woman heard this, she was absolutely appalled, Joe. The very idea that he was writing an article filled her with terror. She told him that if he persisted in his efforts to publicize this story, she would emphatically deny these charges. The prospects for an article irretrievably came to an end, and Glaze had no choice but to go home empty-handed. Now, it was not long after his departure that he felt obliged to speak to the woman again. What he intended to say is not mentioned in the letters, but perhaps he wanted to make an apology to her. In any case, it was only a few hours since his last conversation with her, and he decided to go back to her apartment to see her again. When he arrived at her apartment, he was surprised to find it totally empty, Joe, and it looked as if no one had ever even lived there. Now, Glaze knew that this woman had a husband and a kid, and they were all gone too. No trace of any of the three ever being there was found. So this place is cleaned out. People gone, furniture gone, cleaned up, all within 3 or 4 hours.
Wow.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Not
Right.
sure what to think.
Yeah. The mystified reporter could not understand how 3 people could have moved away so quickly. So the next day he went to the woman's place of employment and found out that she never showed up for work, and no one knew where she was or how to get in touch with her. Later inquiries revealed that she did not even stop by to pick up her final paycheck. In his quest to find them, the most promising lead, and you'll love this, Joe, Glaze had, was the fact that the husband of this woman had once been a musician in the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. Right? Mr. Bojangles. Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, right?
Yeah. They could have performed at...
That's like being the president of the Itty Bitty Titty Committee.
Hey, I'd take that appointment.
So, at about the same time he was conducting his search, Glaze went to get his interview notes and tapes and found they had been inexplicably disappeared from his house. One day shortly after, he heard a commotion outside his apartment, and he looked out the window and saw an estimated 20 Dallas police pulled up in front of his house. They lingered for nearly an hour, shouting in a highly threatening manner and pointing their pistols at his window. Frightened for his life, he immediately left the city. Right? Fast forward to December of 1977, Joe. While working as a reporter for the Avalanche Journal in Lubbock, Texas, he sent a letter to the HSCA. He wrote that he had some information regarding the assassination of President Kennedy and gave a brief sketch of his investigation of the book depository. In the closing paragraphs of the letter, he wrote, "I must admit that my own fear of getting involved in the investigation has prevented me from writing you earlier. I apologize." The reply the HSCA sent was a form letter that read, "Dear Ms. Glaze." The HSCA had mistakenly thought that he was a woman, given the name Elsie, which is understandable.
HSCA, ahead of their time again.
Yeah. "Thank you for your letter. It has been directed to the Deputy Chief Counsel in charge of the investigation lot for his review. Your interest in the work of our committee is appreciated. Sincerely, G. Robert Blakey, Chief Counsel and Director." Now, Fast forward 11 years after that. Glaze wrote a letter to somebody named Doug Kelliner and Frank Morrow of the Alternative Information Network.
What, 88?
Yeah, 89, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He also sent them a copy of the reply he got from Blakey. Somehow, a copy of both these letters ended up in the hands of researcher Larry Ray Harris. In his own letter to me, Harris wrote, I don't recall its origins with clarity, but I think it was given to me by a professor at Southern Methodist University here in Dallas. Regardless, it ended up in my files around the time we opened the JFK Center in 1989. It'd be easy to verify. Number one, if a reporter named Glaze ever worked for a Lubbock newspaper. Number two, if a journalist named Glaze was living in Dallas in 74, 75. And number three, if there was an alternative information network in Austin, or if somebody named Kelliner and Morrow are real people and remember receiving this letter. If it is true that Shelley was affiliated in some way with the CIA or U.S. intelligence, that would be a disturbing and potentially significant development. So, what are you going to do? Well, fast forward to 1993. When they called up the Avalanche Journal and asked for Mr. Glaze. No one by that name was currently employed, and neither were there any records of a Glaze in the files of the personnel department. Yet the absence of records did not necessarily mean he never worked there. It was regular practice to discard the records after 3 years. Was there anyone who had been around long enough to remember a journalist named Glaze? The personnel director said that she had been with the paper for about as long as anyone since 1982 and never knew anyone by that name. Now, there's strike one. I had tried to reach either Kelliner or Morrow at the Alternative Information Network, which turned out to be a real thing. Kelliner was the one who took my call, and I told him who I was and that I had a letter addressed to him and his partner regarding the Kennedy assassination. Now, after I read the contents, Kelliner said he never got it. It was odd, he said, that I should have a letter in which he was named as a recipient, but he had never seen it. He asked that a copy be sent to his home and not to the business, and that after he read it, he would check into it. So 2 weeks later, I made a follow-up phone call and asked Kelliner if he found out anything, and he said that he showed the letter to Morrow, who said that he vaguely remembered it, but could not give any additional information regarding the contents or the author. So that's as far as things went in 93, and then fast forward to 1999. A researcher named Steve Gall checked the National Archives website and found that someone named Glaze had written to the HSCA. That was when they finally found out the full name of the reporter, Elsie Dean Glaze. A search of the internet revealed that a man with the same name had a current email address in Austin, Texas. Sent 2 messages to that address and received no response. The next lead that had to be tracked down was the identity of the man who had been a member of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, the Itty Bitty Titty Committee. The band started out in 1966 as a jug band in Long Beach, California. They became known for their unique blend of country and western and rock and roll. Among the original musicians were John McCune, Jeff Hanna, Bruce Kunkel, Ralph Barr, Leslie Thompson, and Jimmy Fadden. After appearing in a movie called Paint Your Wagon, the band went through some hard times. In 1968, a meeting was held in the manager's Hollywood office, and the group decided to break up. But
wait, the Nitty Gritty band broke up?
Yes. But there's good news.
Okay.
A year or two later, the members of the band, with the exception of Kunkel and Barr, decided to try again, and a new member from Philly named Jimmy Ibbotson was added on, and this time they achieved commercial success in 1970 with a song called Mr. Bojangles, right?
Yeah.
In 1977, the group acquired the distinction of being the first American band to tour the Soviet Union. There's your fun fact Friday. They are still active as a band, at least up to May 1999, and they just released a new album called Bang Bang Bang. Bang Bang Bang.
Great title.
Yes. The problem with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band is it was basically a very loose band. Like, you know, if their buddies were over, they were in the band. And then like they moved on after a couple weeks and some other people came by and played different instruments and they were in the band. And then a couple weeks later, you know, your cousin from Boston shows up and now he's in the band. Right? So they had members that would come and go all the time.
Okay. Like a jam circle, drum circle, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he decided to contact Leslie Thompson, a former founding member, who is now a goldsmith in Fairfax, Virginia. He left the band at the end of 73. Shortly afterwards, the band went through a large turnover of musicians. And the member spoken of by Glaze was definitely not one of the original 7. Thompson said, but he might have been one of the 30-odd temporary musicians who were passing in and out of the band. A couple of those names, you may have heard of one of them, Joe, Kenny Loggins.
I haven't.
You are so young.
Are you outdating me again?
Dude, this is Kenny Loggins, straight 80s, bro.
Okay, I was born in 86. What do you want from me?
Was Kenny Loggins Footloose? Help me out here in the comment section. Well, I'm feeling footloose. You know,
I think so.
Highway to the Danger Zone? Top Gun?
Wait, from that, I know that. That's an epic song, of course.
Yeah. Okay. That's Kenny Loggins.
Okay.
Loggins and Messina.
Okay, that's
after he left the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, obviously.
Yeah. It wasn't paying his bills any longer.
So it obviously wasn't Kenny Loggins who was the mysterious man he was looking for. So next, check what we know about Bill Shelley. So at the time the assassination occurred, Shelley was standing on the steps of the book depository with Lovelady and Fraser. The auction's photograph of the limousine under fire confirms the presence of Lovelady on the steps, but does not clearly depict Shelley or Fraser. About a minute after the assassination, 2 female employees in the book depository and Lovelady in the back of the building, just about in front of the 2 freight elevators by the back door. One lady said, I believe the president has been shot. Now, we talked about this, about the girl on the stairs, and them changing her testimony and this, that, and the other. You know, were Shelley and Lovelady posted up at the back door by Truly? After the 2 women ran out the back door, Truly and Marion Baker rushed in through the front door. They were going up to the roof to search for a gunman, and according to Baker's testimony, he saw 2 white men sitting by the stairs. Lovelady and Shelley.
Yeah.
So he saw them. Victoria Adams and Sandra Siles saw them.
Yeah.
Let's see. According to Shelley, he and Lovelady were appointed by Truly to guard the stairs and the elevators. Shelley and Lovelady had to have seen the escape of one of the assassins from their vantage point. About a minute or 2 after Truly and Baker went up the stairs, a witness on the street saw a man in a dark sport coat running out the back door. So if those 2 were posted back there, right?
Yeah.
Then they had to see whoever left the building.
For sure.
Now, whether or not they thought it was maybe some stiff that worked up on the 4th floor for some book company, you know, who knows? A well-dressed guy with a sport coat on.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's possible.
Because they didn't cover, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? They didn't intermingle, you know, with the lowly workers. You know, these guys wore suits and ties to work. These guys, you know, or t-shirts and jeans. So
Yeah. And weren't some people prohibited from going actually to the second floor?
yeah, if you were black, you better not show your face on the second
don't
floor.
get a cold cut on the second floor, God forbid. And yeah.
Good Lordicus. So the man was no doubt the same one seen at a fifth floor window standing next to a man armed with a rifle. After the shooting ended, the man in the dark sport coat took an elevator down to the ground floor, while at the same time, Truly and Baker were going up the stairs. As the culprit headed for the back door, he would have had to pass Shelley and Lovelady in order to exit the building. Now, about a minute or two after the man in the dark sport coat dashed out the back door, NBC News reporter Robert McNeil came in through the front door. Okay, not the liar Pierce Allman, okay, who narrates your way through the sixth floor museum. This is McNeil from the McNeil Lehrer Hour, which probably predates Joe as well. But it was a big thing on Sunday morning. Big political show. You would have loved it. Lots of financial horse nonsense in there. In a written account of what he saw, he said that he was surprised to see three men, totally oblivious to the chaos outside, standing by a payphone in the lobby of the school book depository. He says, and I quote, "I went immediately into the clear space on the ground floor and asked, 'Where is a phone?' There were, as I recall, three men there, all I think in shirt sleeves. What on recollection strikes me as possibly significant is that all three seemed to be exceedingly calm and relaxed compared to the pandemonium which existed right outside the front door. I did not pay attention to this at the time, and I asked the first man I saw, a man who was telephoning from a pillar in the middle of the room, where I could call from. And he pointed me to another man near the door who pointed to an office. When I got to the phone, two of the lines were lit up. I made my call and left. I was in too much of a hurry to remember what the three men looked like, but their manner was very relaxed. Very relaxed." So the man using the payphone inside was quite probably Bill Shelley, for in his affidavit made out the same afternoon, Shelley said that I went back into the building. I went inside and I called my wife and I told her what happened. So about a minute or two after McNeil saw the three calm men between 12:35 and 12:40, Oswald had a 5 to 10 minute chat with his supervisor, Bill Shelley. According to an FBI report of the first interrogation of Oswald in the Dallas Homicide Office, Oswald stated that he took his coat down to the first floor and stood around and had lunch in the employees' lunchroom. He thereafter went outside and stood around for 5 or 10 minutes with foreman Bill Shelley, and thereafter went home. He stated he left work because, in his opinion, based upon the remarks of Bill Shelley, he did not believe there was going to be any more work that day due to the confusion in the building. But the timing and location of Oswald's departure from the book depository correlates somewhat with the appearance of a Nash Rambler on Elm Street driven by a dark-skinned man. So between 12:40 and 12:45, Roger Craig hears a loud whistle and looked up to see Oswald running down the grassy slope in front of the depository. Oswald opened the passenger door of the Nash Rambler and got in. The car was last seen speeding towards Oak Cliff. If Oswald had been talking to Shelley prior to his departure, then there can be no doubt that Shelley had seen him getting away. But not long after Oswald left the scene, Shelley told Truly that Oswald was missing. How he came to this conclusion was never publicly disclosed. But if he saw him leaving, yes, he would obviously know this. Truly notified Will Fritz, who immediately thought that it was important to hold that man. God damn, got to hold that man, Joe.
Yeah.
He getting away. That's our boy.
Yep.
Captain Will Fritz. 99% capture rate, son. What you know about that?
I know a lot about it, but he wasn't the only one, Oswald, to be reported missing during the so-called roll call, if you want to use military terms.
This is true. This is true. Now, the problem with the whole Bill Shelley as a CIA operative after he got out of the military in 1945, Joe, is that the CIA wasn't even created yet until 1947, although the Office of Strategic Services was, which was basically the precursor to the CIA. Okay. He says that during World War II, he worked a little bit in defense contracting plants. And on October 29th, 1945, after getting out of the military, he began working in 1945 for the Book Depository. 18 years later, in 1963, he was holding the position of assistant manager of the, quote, miscellaneous department, Joe. What do you think the miscellaneous department was?
I think
I
it's
love that.
Appropriately named, for sure.
Yeah. He's the assistant manager of whatever the hell he says he's the assistant manager of that day.
Yeah.
That day, Joe, you know what he was assistant manager of? Replacing the 6th floor. That's what he was assistant manager of. That definitely falls under the miscellaneous department and setting up Oswald as well. Let's see here. I'm skimming. Let's see. Yeah, they try to tie it back to D.H. Byrd, who was a colonel in the Civil Air Patrol, who actually owned the building, the School of Depository. We've all heard that jazz before. Mm-hmm. And Lee Harvey Oswald, knowing David Ferry, and all being in the Civil Air Patrol. That D.H. Byrd actually went to Moisant Airport in Louisiana to give speeches to the cadets of the Civil Air Patrol. But I think that's a little bit of a stretch trying to connect D.H. Byrd to a young Lee Harvey Oswald. But
yeah. I mean, it brings me back to what S.T. Patrick said on Quick Hits, right? Like, there could be connections and you can make them to be what you want them to be. But just because someone was in the Civil Air Patrol, another person was in the Civil Air Patrol, I mean, I'm not talking about like in the same picture like Ferry and Oswald. I'm just saying, like, you know, like you can draw whatever like inference you want from it, right? And I don't know. It made a lot of sense when he said that, so it reminded me of that.
Yes, I would agree. But yeah, that's about all I found, Joe, digging into this whole hot mess of the School Book Depository and seeing somebody in a dark sport coat running out of that place. Look, obviously, there's a lot of questions that we'll never have answers to, Joe, when it comes to November 22nd, 1963. And we can sit here and speculate all day about who saw what and who you want to believe and who was telling the truth and who was full of crap. Who knows? Who really knows?
It sucks, you know, but you just kind of got to use your best judgment and who had corroborating statements as early as the 22nd or 23rd or 24th and try to deduct what you can. And that's what we try to do on this show. I know that for sure. And we'll probably never be done.
Yeah. You know, I can only hope that some more undeveloped film comes to light, you know, found in somebody's grandparents' attic, you know, from November 22nd, 1963 in Dallas. And like Kenneth and Alex from last show, hey, keep buying that stuff. If you live in Dallas, you should be hitting up the antique malls, thrift stores, seeing if you can find any kind of old film, reel-to-reel, cameras, slides. You never know what you could find. You know?
No, you're
just like that other Martin film, you know?
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah. And Very fascinating.
Fascination.
And I have to say one last thing. Shelley has always been a person to me that there is more under the surface to, just for sure. And I don't know how to get under that surface. I'm sure like people like Bart and everyone else have done pretty much all that could be done with Shelley, but something just doesn't sit right with me, Rob. I don't know. Him and truly.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are saying too that the CIA could have been using that schoolbook depository, that company, as a front to run guns, down through Louisiana and eventually to the South America, Nicaragua, Cuba, whatever. I mean, who's gonna stop a book truck?
Yeah,
with big boxes in there that say books on them.
Very true. It's a great.
But in the false bottom, there's 100 guns. There's 100-man Nicaracanos stuffed in the bottom of the pallet.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah.
There's so many great articles out there that talk about this kind of stuff. There's one I did a show about a long time ago called the spider web of the book depository. It gets crazy.
Is that what Gil or no?
No. This is probably way back in the embarrassing days.
BJ.
Definitely BJ. Before Joe. Definitely BJ. But before we get off here, folks, we want to thank you very much for always showing up and supporting us. You guys rock. It's always a fun time in here. And I apologize to everybody for my shit camera. It turns out I needed to reset my router. Anyway, I'm not all shaky and everything. So sorry about the beginning of the show. I apologize. And it will not happen again. It will not. And also, if you're thinking about going to Lancer this year in Dallas, down in the description for this very video, there's a link. Use that link, put the code Gunman10 in when you buy any ticket. Doesn't matter what kind of ticket it is. And you will get a 10% discount, and you will also help out this show. So if you're going to Lancer this year, hey, do us a favor and buy your tickets through our link, right?
Save.
Be dumb not to. Save 10%.
You might even see one or both of us there. You never know.
Yeah, Joe will give everyone $10 from his own pocket.
I'll buy everyone a drink.
Just come up to him and say Scooter, and he will give you $10 hard, crisp cash.
Yep.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Sounds cool, right, Joe?
Yeah, I'm down.
Also, head over to Locals and support our Locals community over there. I believe that at some point this weekend, your boy might try to make a Locals only episode. Possibly. We will see. And if you're in the hot sauce game, folks, you cannot go wrong with Silk City. It's delicious. It's delicious. Silk City hot sauce. Follow the link in the description. Enter the code Gunman, and you can save 20% off your entire order. That's huge. They even ship internationally for our folks across the pond or down under. Wherever you are, Silk City will make its way to you and light up them taste buds. Set your buttholes on fire.
Love it.
So, yes, support those who support us. Go get some Silk City. You won't regret it. And for handsome bearded Joe Borelli in the tight black t-shirt tonight, and you're not Choppy Boy anymore, that's going to be it for us, folks. Until next time. You know what time it is, Joe? Peace. And chicken grease.
I agree.
Yes. Don't marry your niece.